Chapter 55-57. Hearing Elder Yan's words. Everyone remembered that it had been a long time since they last saw him. Perhaps he did not even know who Bailey Hongzhuang was. However, when they thought of this, everyone felt that there would be a good show to watch later. Elder Yan, we're not fooling you. Long Yanwei spoke slowly, and there was a hint of sympathy in his eyes. Based on Bailey Hongzhuang's character, Elder Yan would most likely not be able to escape today. After Yan Haoguang took the pill, he felt a sharp pain. The pain went deep into his bones, as if there were countless insects biting his body. There was nowhere to hide, and he was on the verge of collapse. Originally, under the torture of Bailey Hongzhuang, he was already weak to the extreme, and at this moment, he was suffering so much that he could hardly make a sound. However, when he saw Elder Yan, it was as if he had seen a life-saving straw. "Uncle, save me." Yan Haoguang crawled forward bit by bit. His eyes were filled with hope as he stared at Elder Yan. It was as if he was his only hope. When Elder Yan noticed Yan Haoguang's appearance, he suddenly became anxious. Without saying anything else, he appeared next to Yan Haoguang in a flash. Bailey Hongzhuang was not anxious when she saw this. She did not care about this so-called Elder Yan at all. As Elder Yan approached, he also noticed Yan Haoguang's injuries. He was instantly enraged, and the anger in his heart overwhelmed him. The veins on the corners of his eyes bulged, as if they were going to burst at any time. "Stupid girl! How dare you treat him like this?" Elder Yan's eyes were bloodshot due to his anger. With Yan Haoguang in such a state, even if he were to stay alive today, it would be difficult for him to recover in the future. "Haoguang, I'll take you away now." Elder Yan was about to help Yan Haoguang up. Although he wanted to teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson, Yan Haoguang's injuries were too serious. If they were not treated as soon as possible, he might lose his life. As for settling the score, there would be plenty of opportunities in the future. However, just as he was about to leave with Yan Haoguang, he suddenly heard the latter say, "Poison, poisoned." Elder Yan was stunned for a moment, but he quickly understood what she meant. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. "You actually poisoned Haoguang? You're so young, but I didn't expect you to be so despicable. You really have the heart of a snake." Listening to Elder Yan's words, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly chuckled. "Elder Yan, I think you should figure out who poisoned me first. I'm just giving them a taste of their own medicine, that's all. If you want to talk about despicable and shameless, it's your nephew. Of course, a crooked stick will have a crooked shadow. Old man, you're not a good person either." Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with disgust. Even though she didn't know much about Elder Yan, from his arrogant appearance, she could understand that Yan Haoguang's conduct had something to do with him. Her cold and distant words were very calm, but it was this kind of indifferent statement of facts that made people feel even more embarrassed. "You stupid girl. I'm going to teach you a good lesson today." After being humiliated by this little girl, Elder Yan could no longer suppress the rage in his heart. He immediately charged towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 55-58. The crowd could not help but sigh when they saw that Elder Yan actually dared to take the initiative to attack Bailey Hongzhuang. He was really digging his own grave. Elder Yan was puzzled when he realized that Bai Tsangming and the rest had no intention of stopping him after he made his move. However, he was mostly immersed in the joy of killing Bailey Hongzhuang. No matter how much of a genius this young junior was, what could he achieve? Yan Haoguang was also extremely anxious when he saw Elder Yan's actions. However, in his current situation, he couldn't even speak properly, let alone shout to remind Elder Yan. Just as Elder Yan's attack was about to reach him, Bewitching suddenly moved. His figure was like the wind. A fierce look flashed across his deep, dark eyes, and a tyrannical force flashed past. Even though it was only for a short moment, the crowd could still feel the power of Bewitching's strength. This kind of terrifying strength was simply breathtaking. Elder Yan, who had made up his mind to take Bailey Hongzhuang's life with one move, suddenly felt an uncontrollable force coming towards him. Immediately after, he felt as if he had been attacked by a ferocious beast. His body flew backwards and fresh blood spurted out wildly. His internal organs seemed to have been smashed into pieces at that moment. Bang! A dull but loud sound rang out. The crowd saw Elder Yan's entire body being embedded into the wall. Fresh blood spurted out and dyed the front of his clothes red. He was completely battered and exhausted. He no longer had the smug look he had when he was shouting at Bailey Hongzhuang. Cough cough. Elder Yan was silent for a moment before he returned to his senses. His eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Bewitching in the distance. He could not care less about the pain in his body as his heart was filled with shock. That kind of ability was definitely the most powerful person he had ever seen. How could such a young cultivator's ability be so terrifying? At this moment, he suddenly understood that Bai Songming's words were not a lie. Based on Bewitching's ability alone, Bai Songming could not possibly be his match. He actually finished it off with a single move. Everyone sighed. Everyone had guessed that Elder Yan was no match for Bewitching, but the gap was too big. In their eyes, Elder Yan was also an invincible and powerful existence. However, he had been completely crippled with just one move. The gap between them was truly terrifying. When Yan Haoguang saw that Elder Yan had also ended up like this, it was as if his last hope was gone. In addition to the excruciating pain that made him wish he was dead, he died just like that. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng, on the other hand, were incomparably calm. They were only shocked by the increase in Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Thinking back to when these two little fellows left, their strength was not as strong as theirs. In just a few short years, they had actually grown to this level. It was really too shocking. Yun Xiao, it seems that we as elders are really ashamed. Yu Linfeng shook his head and sighed. Lan Yunxiao nodded slightly. Indeed, these little fellows' harvest this time is really shocking. When the sect master and the instructor of the Crimson Moon sect arrived, they saw this scene. Instantly, it was as if they had swallowed a fly, and their originally unsightly expressions became even more unsightly. They only thought that Yan Haoguang had caused trouble, and did not expect that Elder Yan would also participate. Chapter 55-59. Look, even the sect master of the Crimson Moon sect is here. This incident has really blown up. Even the sect master has rushed over. I wonder how this will end. Ever since the sect master of the Crimson Moon sect had arrived, his expression had been rather awkward. Even though he was extremely unwilling, he still stepped forward and said, "Palace Master Bai, long time no see." Bai Songming smiled faintly. His politeness carried a sense of alienation. "Sect Master Lu, I'm only here today to lead the way. However, your sect's teachers have really run amok. How dare they treat the family members of my disciples in this manner? It seems that you'll have to manage this properly." Everyone knew about the grudge between the Crimson Moon sect and Penglai Palace over the years. The two of them were even more at odds with each other on the surface. This situation could not be any more normal. Sect Master Lu's gaze then landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching. Even though this was the first time he had seen the two of them, he already knew who they were from the moment they had appeared. "Miss Bailey, I'm really sorry about this. It was my oversight, and I did not manage my subordinates well. I hope that you can be magnanimous. I will never allow this to happen again." Sect Master Lu's expression was serious, and his face was filled with regret. It was an extremely sincere apology. Before he had arrived, he had already made up his mind to apologize sincerely and seriously. If Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to forgive them, then everything would be fine. However, if Bailey Hongzhuang was unwilling to forgive them, then everything would become troublesome. The previous incident had already dealt a huge blow to the Crimson Moon sect. If this were to happen again, the entire Crimson Moon sect would probably be wiped out. However, when the crowd saw that Sect Master Lu had immediately apologized to Bailey Hongzhuang upon his arrival, they all widened their eyes in shock. That was right. Bailey Hongzhuang's power had exceeded everyone's expectations. It was just that Sect Master Lu was usually a high and mighty existence in everyone's eyes. Who would have thought that he would actually be so respectful and apologetic towards Bailey Hongzhuang without any temper? Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng exchanged glances. They seemed to have underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's influence on Penglai Island. Bailey Hongzhuang remained calm in the face of sect head Lu's apology. She did not say whether she accepted or rejected it. If she had come one step later today, her father and master would have already lost their lives. Even if their lives were not in danger, their injuries were not ordinary. She would not completely let this matter go just because of a few words of apology from the other party. She would never let go of anyone who dared to hurt her family. Moreover, the memory of how the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect had treated her was still fresh in her mind. If not for Linger saving her, she and Bewitching would have been separated by life and death. It was because of this that she did not have a good impression of the Crimson Moon sect at all. This kind of situation had happened time and time again. It could be seen that this was the sect master's style. If he had not allowed the cultivators to run amok, this kind of situation would not have happened. Just as the crowd was guessing Bailey Hongzhuang's decision, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly asked a question that confused everyone. Palace Master, when I was seriously injured and went missing, was this fellow the sect master of the Crimson Moon sect? Chapter 5560. Long Yanwei and the others stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other as well, they really could not understand the reason behind Bailey Hongzhuang's sudden question. Only Bewitching had a clear look on his face, as if he had already guessed the reason behind her question. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang gently nodded in understanding. Sect Master Lu stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion, and could not help but ask, "May I know why you ask, Lady Bailey?" Bailey Hongzhuang's face remained cold in the face of Sect Master Lu's seemingly friendly attitude. The space between her brows was filled with disdain and disgust. Since you were also the sect leader of the Crimson Moon sect, you should have learned your lesson after that incident. Now that something like this has happened, it proves that you did not take the lesson from before to heart. Bailey Hongzhuang glared coldly at Sect Master Lu. She knows very well that this fellow must know that if she does not appease her anger, the entire Crimson Moon sect would be implicated. That was why he had rushed over to apologize. After all, the previous incident had caused such a huge commotion. He was very clear about the power behind Bewitching. She did not think that Sect Master Lu's apology was sincere. He was only pretending to be sincere because of the situation. She did not care for an apology like this. Besides, even if it was true, she did not care. Because an apology was not enough to make up for anything. Could an apology really make up for the pain that her father and master had suffered? How could the humiliation they had suffered during this period of time be so easily covered up with just an apology? It couldn't. None of it could. Therefore, to her, this apology was just a meaningless sentence. Once Bailey Hongzhuang had spoken, the expressions on the faces of the crowd changed. It seems that even though Sect Master Lu has personally stepped in, Bailey Hongzhuang's anger has not dissipated. Actually, this is normal. If it was your family that was treated like this, they wouldn't let it go so easily just because of an apology. Everyone shrugged their shoulders. Everyone was very clear about the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang did this. If his strength was not as good as Sect Master Lu's, then he would have no choice but to swallow his anger. But since he had such strength, why should he be afraid? Sect Master Lu obviously didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to say something like that. Instantly his expression turned awkward. He only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was young and inexperienced, so it was impossible for her to see the problem so clearly. But he didn't expect this guy to hit the nail on the head and make him unable to refute. After a while, he smiled embarrassedly. I did not do a good enough job in this matter. But Miss Bailey, you can rest assured that I will absolutely not let such a thing happen again in the future. Sect Head Lu's gaze landed on the injured duo. I'm truly sorry, but I'll be responsible for any medicinal ingredients and fees you need for your treatment. Can't we be responsible for this? Shangguan Yingying snorted coldly. Miss, you misunderstood. I only wanted to express my apologies and attitude, Sect Head Lu hurriedly explained. Sect Master Lu explained hurriedly. At this point, he could no longer be bothered about losing face. As long as this matter could be resolved peacefully, losing face was nothing. Didn't they see that Elder Yan was already embedded into the wall? Chapter 5561. Sect leader Lu knew very well that once Bailey Hongzhuang had made up her mind to bury the entire Crimson Moon sect, they would not be able to stop her. Compared to the consequences, losing a bit of face was nothing. As long as there was still a chance to salvage the situation, and the Crimson Moon sect would not be affected, he was willing to do anything to make up for it. Then, according to sect leader Lu's opinion, how should we deal with Elder Yan who was about to kill Hongzhuang? Bewitching looked at sect leader Lu lazily and casually. He did not take the latter's apology to heart. As Bewitching's cloud landed, sect leader Lu was slightly stunned. He instinctively looked at Elder Yan who was still embedded in the wall. At this moment, his hair had been dyed white by the dust on the wall, and his aura was weak as he looked over. Elder Yan had been an elder in the Crimson Moon sect for many years, and his strength was extremely outstanding. After the previous incident, the entire Crimson Moon sect had lost many powerful cultivators. If they lost Elder Yan, their strength would be greatly reduced once again. At the thought of this, sect leader Lu felt conflicted. However, when he noticed Bewitching's cold gaze, he quickly said, "Young Master D, from the moment he acted disrespectfully towards you, he was no longer a member of the Crimson Moon sect. You can decide how to deal with him." When Elder Yan saw that the sect leader had given up on him just like that, his heart trembled. Based on the current situation, if the sect leader was not willing to save him, only death would await him. If he had known that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were so powerful, he would not have stepped in. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. At the thought of this, Elder Yan felt depressed. He could only blame Haoguang for not telling him that Bewitching and the rest were so powerful. If that was the case, he would not have made a single mistake. Compared to Elder Yan's opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had a different opinion. If he really felt very apologetic, they only had to casually mention it, and sect leader Lu would have personally dealt with Elder Yan. However, the fact that he said such words now proved that he had other ideas in mind. Bai Songming exchanged glances with Yi Zihua when he saw this, and then he said via voice transmission, "This fellow is still as dishonest as before. However, playing such tricks in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others is equivalent to courting death." By now, he had some understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Although they were young, they were all intelligent and quick-witted. If they treated them with sincerity, they would also treat them with sincerity. However, if they wanted to scheme against them, they would definitely scheme against them even more miserably. Sect head Lu clearly didn't want to be the bad guy, and hoped that he could take the opportunity to spare Elder Yan's life. When the time came, Elder Yan would still be Elder Yan. If that's the case, then I'll end him. Bewitching's voice was cold. He raised his right hand, and a streak of black energy flashed past. Immediately after, everyone realized that Elder Yan's life force had been cut off. Sect head Lu's face froze when he saw this scene. He didn't expect Bewitching to be so decisive. Taking Elder Yan's life in front of so many people was not giving him any face at all. Chapter 5562. When Bai Songming and the rest saw how impolite Bewitching was, they couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts. It was obvious that Bewitching had already guessed sect head Lu's thoughts, so he didn't give him any chance. Even though sect head Lu concealed it extremely well, they still noticed the shock and awkwardness that flashed across his face. Sect head Lu had a flattering smile on his face. He knew that the key to this matter was Lan Yunxiao. If Lan Yunxiao agreed, then this matter would be over. On the other hand, if Lan Yunxiao refused to let it go, then Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest would definitely poke a hole in the Crimson Moon sect. Lan Yunxiao was also someone who was used to seeing through wind and rain. He had long seen through feigned civility. He didn't intend to say much about this matter, and left it all to Hongzhuang and Bewitching to handle. Now that these two children no longer needed their protection, they could already hold up the sky on their own. Facing Lan Yunxiao's cold face, sect head Lu couldn't help but feel a trace of anger. As the sect head of the Crimson Moon sect, who didn't treat him with respect. It was fine if Bailey Hongzhuang and Sheng Guanying's strength wasn't ordinary. But this Lan Yunxiao had just arrived at Penglai Island, and actually relied on these two's strength to treat everyone with disdain. He was truly abominable. There's no need to say any more. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly spoke. Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with boundless coldness. Since you're not a good subordinate, I think you might as well quit being the sect head. Following this cold and pleasant voice, the entire area around the stage fell into a deathly silence. Wasn't this too domineering? Telling someone to quit being the sect head as soon as she opened her mouth. Shangguan Yingying's mouth was also agape. Her round eyes revealed her astonishment and shock. Hong Zhuang's words could really scare someone to death. Even though she also felt that the Crimson Moon sect had provoked them time and time again, and that there was no need for them to exist, they were still the dignified sect leader. The moment Hong Zhuang opened her mouth, the sect leader would not be able to get out of this embarrassing situation. PFFF. Cough cough. Izihua almost choked on his own saliva. In the past, he had discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang had this kind of amazing talent. However, after not seeing her for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang's ability in this area had improved again. Miss Bailey, did I hear wrongly? Sect Master Lu stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes filled with disbelief. What did you just say? You didn't hear wrongly. I told you not to be the sect master anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang reiterated. With a sect head like you, the disciples of the Crimson Moon sect will not have a good future. The reason why Elder Yan and Yan Haoguang were so tyrannical was undoubtedly because of sect leader Lu's indulgence. Even if these two guys were already dead, there would be more people like them appearing in the future. With the new and old grudges added together, she now loathed the Crimson Moon sect to the extreme. However, she also knew that not all disciples were like that. Therefore, the best solution was to replace the sect leader. Bailey Hongzhuang, the sect head is giving you face. Don't go overboard. Instructor Lu, who had come along with sect head Lu, could not help but cry out angrily. He had long known that Bailey Hongzhuang was difficult to deal with. However, he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so overboard. Who do you think you are? Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at him. Can't you see that I'm talking to your sect head? Chapter 5563. Instructor Lu was infuriated. He had never seen such a tyrannical person like Bailey Hongzhuang. She wanted to remove the sect leader from his position the moment she opened her mouth. What a joke. Even though there were many powerful people on Penglai Island, he had never heard of such a situation. From his point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang had said that to embarrass the sect leader. The sect leader had already humbled himself and apologized. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was still unwilling to forgive him. She really had no sense of propriety. I never thought that you would be so loyal to protect your master. A sharp light flashed across Bailey Hongzhuang's black eyes. However, I won't fall for that. Bailey Hongzhuang casually struck out with her palm. The crowd only felt a strong wind blow past them. Instructor Lu's body flew backward and landed beside Elder Yan's corpse. He spat out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that he was breathing less than he was breathing. Seeing this, the crowd could not help but sigh. They felt that Instructor Lu was really reckless. The situation with Elder Yan and Yan Haoguang was a lesson to be learned from. If it were anyone else, they would not have chosen to speak at such a time. Bailey Hongzhuang was obviously targeting sect leader Lu. However, no one could deny that her words were unreasonable. In reality, compared to the other two forces, the Crimson Moon sect was indeed too tyrannical. Sect leader Lu had an undeniable responsibility for this. It was because of his indifference and connivance that such situations had increased in the sect. Initially, many of the Crimson Moon sect's disciples were wondering if they should quickly escape. After all, once Bailey Hongzhuang unleashed her invincible power and wanted to bury the entire Crimson Moon sect, they would not even have time to run. However, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, their hearts calmed down. Could it be that as long as sect leader Lu stepped down from his position as sect leader, the Crimson Moon sect would not be affected too much? Sect leader Lu, who was initially unconcerned, narrowed his eyes when he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had taken Instructor Lu's life in one move. A trace of shock surfaced in his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to do this in front of him. She really had no scruples. Miss Bailey, let's talk this out, sect leader Lu said in a panic. I'm ordering you now, not negotiating with you. You have two choices. One is to give up the position of sect master, and the other is to die. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. The Crimson Moon sect had to pay the price for everything that they had done. Sect master Lu stood there in a daze. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were like a bucket of cold water poured over his head. Suddenly, he seemed to have lost his mind and did not know what to do. He had never thought that he would be faced with such a choice. Bai Tsangming could not help but secretly rejoice. Fortunately, he had befriended Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching. The speed of their growth was simply too shocking. In the past, they had only seen them as ants. However, in just a short period of time, they already had the ability to abolish the position of sect leader. Miss Bailey, Master D, aren't your conditions a little too unreasonable? Sect leader Lu pondered. It was not easy for him to lead the Crimson Moon sect to its current position. How could he be willing to hand over the position of sect leader just like that? Once he handed it over, he would really become a joke in the future. It would be difficult for him to have a foothold on Punglai Island. Chapter 55-64. Bailey Hongzhuang could not be bothered to say anything more to this guy. He still has not figured out the real situation. It seems that sect leader Lu has already made his decision. A cold look flashed across Bewitching's eyes, and a murderous aura quietly spread out. Noticing Bewitching's change, sect leader Lu's expression changed slightly. His heart quivered, and a cold look appeared in his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang, Bewitching, don't go overboard. Even if you're very powerful, you can't force someone to make such a choice. In the next moment, without waiting for Bewitching to attack, sect leader Lu's figure flashed, and he attacked directly. He was worried about the power behind Bewitching, and not Bewitching. Since there were only Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang, he had no need to be afraid. Even if the entire Crimson Moon sect was implicated, what did it have to do with him? Without the position of sect leader, everything had nothing to do with him. After so many years of hard work, he could not accept it. He would rather die than accept it. No one would have thought that sect leader Lu would dare to attack Bewitching directly. However, thinking about it carefully, under the pressure of Bailey Hongzhuang, it was normal for sect leader Lu to resist. If it were anyone else, they would not be able to accept it either. After noticing sect leader Lu's actions, a cold look flashed across Bewitching's eyes. More than that, there was contempt and disdain. You're digging your own grave. Bewitching snorted coldly. His figure flashed, and he dodged sect leader Lu's attack. Seeing this, Sovereign Lu's heart was also shocked. He did not expect Bewitching's speed to be so fast. However, he did not give up and immediately attacked again. As long as he could subdue Bewitching, nothing else would be a problem. However, Bewitching soon showed him what true strength was. Although sect master Lu thought that he was extremely powerful, in front of Bewitching, he was simply unable to withstand a single blow. He didn't even manage to land a single hit on Bewitching, and he himself had become a target. One attack after another landed on his body, and the powerful and ferocious force destroyed his internal organs. Bang bang bang. Bewitching kicked out with both his legs, all of which landed on sect head Lu's chest. Sect master Lu's body kept swaying in midair. Finally, he was embedded into the ground by Bewitching's kick. That ferocious force actually directly smashed a deep hole in the ground. Smoke and dust scattered in all directions, blurring everyone's vision. Then, a pale golden figure jumped out of the deep pit. It was Bewitching without a doubt. However, no one saw sect leader Lu again. This old fellow really doesn't know how to choose. He clearly had a way out, but he chose to die. Bai Tsangming shook his head and sighed. From the moment sect leader Lu attacked Bewitching, he knew that this fellow would not be able to keep his life today. In fact, he had also guessed that with sect leader Lu's despicable level, if he really knew that Bewitching was so powerful, he would definitely not have chosen to fight force with force. It would have been better if he had escaped. In all likelihood, he thought that Elder Yan had fallen into such a situation because they had helped him. Therefore, he had misjudged the situation and led to such an outcome. Chapter 55-65. As sect leader Lu's life force was completely cut off, the surroundings were in an uproar. Regardless of whether it was the death of Elder Yan or Yin Haoguang, everyone was extremely calm. This was because even though the two of them had a high status in the Crimson Moon sect, they were not considered to be very impressive figures in the entire Penglai Island. However, sect leader Lu was a completely different matter. He was the sect leader of the Crimson Moon sect. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang had casually asked sect leader Lu to step down from his position, most of the people thought that it was just a show of strength. Who would have thought that Bewitching would be so decisive and kill sect leader Lu in one move? This was simply too shocking. Heavens, even sect leader Lu is no match for Bewitching. I'm afraid that the Crimson Moon sect is completely finished. What do we do now? I wonder if Bailey Hongzhuang will vent her anger on the entire Crimson Moon sect because of this matter? Why don't we just leave the sect and not go back? That's right. It's better not to go back at a time like this in case we get into trouble. In an instant, many disciples of the Crimson Moon sect panicked. Most of the people on the Crimson Moon Island were disciples of the Crimson Moon sect. Moreover, this matter was related to their teacher. Hence, many disciples had come to observe. Who would have thought that they would see such a scene? Their sect leader was killed right in front of their eyes. Moreover, his methods were swift and decisive. There was no room for negotiation at all. Incidents where an entire sect was destroyed because of disagreements had happened frequently in history. Absolute powerhouses did things according to their moods and would start a massacre at the slightest disagreement. They were not willing to be buried together with Yin Haoguang. At this moment, everyone's hearts were scattered. Even though they had worked hard for a long time to join one of the three great forces, they did not care anymore. Even though the cultivators were discussing softly, Bailey Hongzhuang could still hear them clearly. Just as the cultivators were hesitating on how to get rid of this matter, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice suddenly rang out. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Today's grudge has been settled. I'm not someone who would kill the innocent. Everyone, there's no need to worry. Her exquisite face was filled with confidence. Just by standing there quietly, she emitted an endless amount of brilliance. Everyone's hearts shivered as they stared at the proud and peerless figure. This woman was truly exceptional. Even more cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were very clear. She would not pursue this matter any further. The people who originally thought that something terrible had happened suddenly felt that it wasn't as bad as they thought. Although the sect master had fallen, they didn't have a good impression of him. Moreover, because of Yin Haoguang's tyrannical behavior, many cultivators were bullied by him. Now that these few fellows had disappeared, the Crimson Moon sect might be in a different situation. After the matter was settled, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't linger. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng both needed to be treated and recuperated, so they quickly left the arena. Bai Tsongming's group of three naturally followed closely behind, and they casually found a restaurant on the street to stay in. Young Master Lan, young Master Yu, we are truly sorry this time. Bai Tsongming cupped his hands with an apologetic expression. We didn't investigate this matter clearly. If we had done so earlier, you wouldn't have been injured. Chapter 55-66. Lan Yunxiao was also shocked to see Bai Tsongming apologize to him. Although this was his first time meeting Bai Tsongming, he already knew that he was the palace master of Penglai Palace from his conversations with others. He hadn't been in Penglai Island for long, but Penglai Palace was extremely famous. He didn't expect its palace master to apologize to him so apologetically. He immediately said, Palace Master Bai, you're too polite. This matter was caused by us. It has nothing to do with you, so there's no need to apologize. No. Bai Tsongming shook his head. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching have made great contributions to our Penglai Palace. We should take good care of you. I'm truly sorry. That's right. We didn't handle this matter well. I hope you two can forgive us. Long Yanwei also spoke up. He didn't say this because of his status in Penglai Palace, but because he was a friend of Bailey Hongzhuang's group. He should have taken good care of his friend's family. Unfortunately, he didn't do that. He was truly ashamed. Seeing this, Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng exchanged glances. They immediately understood that if Bailey Hongzhuang didn't relent, Bai Songming and the rest wouldn't be at ease. Yu Linfeng immediately signaled Bailey Hongzhuang with his eyes. After noticing her master's worry, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "Palace Master, Lord Long, you don't need to feel guilty. I know the whole story. If it were me, I would have made the same decision as you. After all, if you talk about this matter too much, everyone will suspect the truth." Lan Yunxiao and Long Yanwei roughly guessed the reason after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words. When they first came to Penglai Island, they inquired about the news of Bailey Hongzhuang. When they inquired, the other party was very willing to talk to them, but when they revealed their identity, the other party directly rolled their eyes and didn't want to talk to them at all. At that time, they felt it was very strange. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were clearly doing well on Penglai Island. They shouldn't have such a reaction to them. However, when they learned that many people had announced that they were Bailey Hongzhuang's family before they came, they completely understood. They felt very helpless about this. Bai Songming and the rest quietly sighed in relief. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang's family was fine. If something had really happened, their relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang would have been completely cut off. "Hongzhuang, what's your plan now? Do you want to return to Penglai Island?" Long Yanwei asked with concern. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "We'll stay here. We originally planned to make a trip home, so we might stay on Scarlet Moon Island for a while. When my father and the rest recover from their injuries, we'll return home. Thank you for leading the way today. If it wasn't for you, we might not have made it in time." "Since that's the case, we won't disturb your rest," said Long Yanwei. "If there's nothing else, we'll take our leave first." Bai Songming stood up. Yu Linfeng clearly still needed to recuperate. If they stayed here, it would be a waste of time. "Bewitching, send the palace master and the rest off," Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. "All right," Bewitching replied. "I'll send you out." Chapter 5567. "Hongzhuang, I finally met you." Lan Yunxiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in pleasant surprise, his handsome face filled with joy and rejoicing. "It's been more than 3 years since you left last time. Although we received your letter last time, we haven't received any news since then. That's why we came here to look for you. But we didn't expect to fall into such a situation. If you hadn't arrived in time, our lives would have been in danger." Her melodious voice was filled with sighs, but it didn't affect Lan Yunxiao's good mood. His daughter and son-in-law had grown up to be so outstanding. He was truly proud of them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt guilty. With her father and master's status in the outside world, there was no need for them to come here. But because they were worried about them, they rushed over and almost lost their lives. "Father, I went to the upper realm because of some accident and didn't have time to inform you. But after I went there, I was told I couldn't come back. It took so long before I had the chance to come back." "I understand. You must have been tied down by something." Lan Yunxiao smiled and rubbed Bailey Hongzhuang's head. "You've always been very filial. If there wasn't a reason, it's impossible for there to be no news of you. But the most fortunate thing is that Beichen's cursed body has been resolved. Now you can live well." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a smile. "Yes. We were too willful when we left without saying goodbye. We're really sorry." Bewitching took the initiative to apologize after returning. Although they didn't want their elders to take risks for them, they also understood that leaving without saying goodbye would make everyone feel uncomfortable. "Silly child, don't tell me we still don't understand why you did this? It's because you're too sensible that we want to do more." Lan Yunxiao didn't blame them at all. He knew that these children were very opinionated. Once they made up their minds, no one could change them no matter what others said. He also understood that young people like to roam the world, so it was only natural. "By the way, Hongzhuang, Have you been to the Di family? Yu Linfeng asked with concern. Following Yu Linfeng's words, Lan Yunxiao straightened his expression and looked at Di Beichen. Beichen, we never thought that you would have such an extraordinary background. However, even if you go to the upper realm, I hope that you can protect Hongzhuang well. Although our power is nothing compared to the Di family, if you dare to bully Hongzhuang, we will fight with our lives. Lan Yunxiao's magnetic voice was heavy and serious. His sharp gaze seemed to be able to see through all of Di Beichen's thoughts. He was very satisfied with this son-in-law. But if Di Beichen changed his mind after going to the upper realm, he wouldn't let his daughter be bullied. Di Beichen also became serious. Father, don't worry. With me here, I definitely won't let anyone bully Hongzhuang. Lan Yunxiao stared fixedly at Di Beichen. After seeing the sincerity in his eyes, he nodded. All right, I believe you. Chapter 5568. On the side, Xiren and Shengguan Yingying hadn't spoken until now. Only at this moment did Xiren speak with a smile. Uncle, don't worry. Beichen's family values Hongzhuang even more than Beichen. The entire family treats her as a treasure, so no one will bully her. That's right. Shengguan Yingying followed up. Hongzhuang is so outstanding. Even though there are countless talented cultivators in the upper realm, Hongzhuang still surpasses them all. You don't know, but among the younger generation in the upper realm, Hongzhuang and Beichen are top-notch. Hearing Xiren and Shengguan Yingying's words, Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng revealed smiles. From the way the two of them spoke, they knew that everything they said was the truth. It seemed that their previous worries were unnecessary. Yunxiao, I told you. With Hongzhuang's ability, there won't be a problem no matter where she goes. Yu Linfeng chuckled, his face relaxed. Even though his injuries were quite serious, his expression became much better due to his joy. Lan Yunxiao nodded with a smile. Indeed, as a father, I've worried too much. Father, I know you're worried about me. Bailey Hongzhuang was moved. This was family. They were always worried about her. That's right, how are mother and master's wife? Other than missing you, everything else is fine. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly smiled and said, Master, you've been seriously injured this time. I'll help you treat your injuries first. When your condition improves, we'll leave. How about it? Even though Yu Linfeng had already taken a pill, his condition had only improved slightly. There were more problems that needed to be treated. Lan Yunxiao replied, Hongzhuang, quickly take a look at your master. His injuries are very serious, and he's been poisoned for a long time. We can't let anything happen to him. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Father, don't worry. I won't let anything happen to Master. The news of the Scarlet Moon sect Master's death had spread throughout the entire Penglai Island in a short period of time. The cultivators who had witnessed this matter with their own eyes had even vividly described the entire matter from beginning to end. The fall of a sect leader was explosive news for the entire Penglai Island. However, when the crowd found out that the attackers were Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, they accepted it. What shocked them the most was that Lan Yunxiao's identity was real. For a moment, many people cried out in regret. If they'd known earlier, they would have built a good relationship with Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunxi. Then they would have received many benefits. Otherwise, they would have risen to the heavens. Unfortunately, they hadn't grasped such a good opportunity. It was easy to imagine how depressed they were. With Bailey Hongzhuang's treatment, Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng's conditions improved quickly. Although Yu Linfeng had been poisoned for a long time and would leave behind some hidden dangers, with Bailey Hongzhuang's help and the help of heavenly treasures, it wasn't difficult to cure him. After staying on Scarlet Moon Island for several days, the group finally set off on their return journey. So this is a flying artifact. Yu Linfeng looked at the flying car in front of him with admiration. Chapter 5569. Seeing the two elders' curious expressions, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but smile. Father, Master, you'll know once it's activated. Lan Yunxiao suspiciously glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang. They had never seen such a new treasure before. However, He also understood that it was most likely extremely effective. Otherwise, these little fellows wouldn't have been able to reach Scarlet Moon Island so quickly. As Bewitching controlled the flying car to leave the outside world, Lan Yunxiao and the other man felt the frightening speed, and deep shock appeared in their eyes. I didn't think we'd be able to travel faster than I expected. It seems we've spent close to 2 months to get to Punglai Island. Now it will probably take less than a month for us to return. Yu Linfeng could not help but sigh. Master Yu, we'll arrive in about 7 days. When Xiren smiled, Yu Linfeng's eyes narrowed. In truth, he also felt that this speed might be a bit faster than what he said. However, to arrive in less than half a month was truly astonishing. They were very clear on how far they had traveled when they first arrived. In fact, they were already traveling at their fastest speed. Previously, we spent quite a bit of time on this sea, and had to face the attacks of demonic beasts. Now that this flying car is flying in the sky, it's naturally extremely fast. Lan Yunxiao revealed a smile, thinking that he would soon be able to return and see everyone he was familiar with. His mood became extremely good. That's true. Yu Linfeng nodded. This flying car is truly a great treasure for traveling. With it, we can save quite a bit of time. Although there were many transportation arrays between cities, there were even more remote places that needed to be traveled. Thus, the journey would take a lot of time. With such a powerful tool, it would undoubtedly be much more convenient. Master Yu, if you like it, I'll give this flying car to you. Bewitching smiled. Yu Linfeng waved his hand. I can't accept this. So what? Bewitching's expression was calm, as if it was only natural. Lan Yunxiao was very clear on how well Yu Linfeng had treated Bailey Hongzhuang. Not only did he give the rainbow pearl to Hongzhuang, he didn't even hide the matter of the stairway to heaven from her. If it weren't for Yu Linfeng's help, many things wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Lan Yunxiao had always remembered this favor in his heart. Although the flying car was precious, it couldn't compare to this friendship. Seeing Bewitching's generous and sincere appearance, Yu Linfeng's smile became increasingly warm and amiable. As a senior, I can't accept the younger generation's things. And this thing in your hands will be in your hands, it's more useful. As long as you can properly develop your development, I will be happy. The simple words fell into the ears of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, but they couldn't help but feel touched. Only the elders who truly cared about them would say such words. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately said, Father, we didn't come here just to visit family. Lan Yunxiao raised his brows and his expression became more serious. What other important matters do you have? Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching exchanged glances. Bewitching said, This time we want to bring all of you to the upper realm. Chapter 55-70. You plan to bring us to the upper realm? A trace of doubt appeared in Lan Yunxiao's eyes. Isn't it said that only cultivators who have reached the Starlight Realm can go there? With our current cultivation, there's still a gap. Don't worry, we've already looked into this problem. Bewitching's lips curled up. We'll bring you along. Everything else isn't a problem, so there's no need to worry. Hearing this, Lan Yunxiao came to a realization. It seemed that Bewitching's status in the upper realm wasn't simple. He could actually break this rule. But even so, they still had many misgivings. Even if we can go to the upper realm now, the experts there are as many as the clouds. With our current cultivation, I'm afraid that only death awaits us. Yu Linfeng frowned. He did look forward to the upper realm, but he was even more aware of the gap between them. If their cultivation wasn't enough, they could only rely on the D family's help. They were originally worried that Hongzhuang would be discriminated against in the D family because of her poor background. If they brought along a bunch of burdens like them, wouldn't it affect Hongzhuang's status even more? Master, don't worry. Although our current strength can't catch up to the cultivators in the upper realm, the cultivation resources there are abundant. Your cultivation speed will be faster, and I believe that it won't be long before you can catch up to everyone else. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of confidence in this point. Whether it was her father or master, their cultivation talent was extremely outstanding. It wasn't that the cultivators in the lower realm weren't as talented as those in the upper realm. It was because of the different environment and cultivation resources, resulting in the gap in cultivation. But as long as they went to the upper realm and made up for the gap in cultivation resources, even if they were still several years behind others, she believed that with her father's talent, they would be able to catch up quickly. It had to be known that whether it was her father or master, they were all first-rate geniuses in everyone's eyes. Even she might not be able to compare to them. I still feel that this isn't appropriate, Lan Yunxiao said in a deep voice. Lan Yunxiao said solemnly, "Let's wait until we have the strength to go to the upper realm." Yu Linfeng looked at Lan Yunxiao and immediately guessed Lan Yunxiao's thoughts. He was probably worried about the same thing as him. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang heard Lan Yunxiao's refusal, she couldn't help but frown with doubt and confusion. "Father, why is that? Penglai Island is very dangerous, and you are not familiar with it, so it is not convenient for you to stay here. Once I go to the upper realm, it'll be very troublesome for me to come back. I'm always worried about you guys. What I want the most right now is to get closer to you guys." Bailey Hongzhuang seriously gazed at Lan Yunxiao. This was what she was currently thinking. After going to the upper realm, although Beichen's family was there, she couldn't help but feel sad and worried when she thought of her own family. It would be best if everyone could stay in the upper realm together. Moreover, it would be more beneficial for everyone's development. For cultivators, increasing their cultivation was something that no one was willing to give up. She knew very well that even though her father and master's status was very high now, they had never slacked off in terms of cultivation. Chapter 5571. Lan Yunxiao couldn't bear to see the hope in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. In truth, what Bailey Hongzhuang said was exactly what he felt. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang had been separated from them at such a young age. After so many years, they had finally reunited, but now they were separated again. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had left, Mu Lingbing had been nagging them every day, hoping that they would come back soon. He was well aware of his wife's thoughts. Because they had been separated for so many years, he had always felt indebted to Hongzhuang. Thus, the two of them only hoped that they would have the chance to spend more time with Hongzhuang and stay by her side. Even though they knew that Hongzhuang had to go out and train, they only hoped that she would be able to see them when she returned. That would be the happiest thing for them. If it were any other place in the lower realms, they wouldn't have to worry too much. However, Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to go to the upper realms. It was too inconvenient for her to travel back and forth. Even though Hongzhuang's heart was tied to them, it wasn't easy for her to come back often. However, as a father, he had to consider Hongzhuang more. Although reuniting was what they wanted, relying on Hongzhuang like this wasn't too appropriate. However, they could work hard to reach the Starlight Realm as soon as possible, and then head to the upper realms. Although they would still be low-level existences in the upper realms, at least they would have a legitimate reason to go there. Hongzhuang, there's no need for you to say anything more. I've already made up my mind. Lan Yunxiao hardened his heart and spoke resolutely. We've stayed in the lower realms for so many years. Our roots have long been planted here. How could it be so easy to leave? Yu Linfeng spoke up. I understand. This is indeed a problem. However, going to the upper realms doesn't mean that we can't come back. We can leave the sect and family matters to trusted people to manage, and return here from time to time. If there are outstanding cultivators, we can even bring them to the upper realm. This way, we can slowly stabilize in the upper realm. Isn't that great? For this point, Bailey Hongzhuang had already thought about it. She understood that it was not easy to make up her mind to give up many things in the lower realms. However, going to the upper realms was indeed a better opportunity for her to develop. Now that they could come to the lower realm so easily, there might be other cultivators from the upper realm coming here in the future. If that really happened, then her family would undoubtedly be the first to be affected. She did not wish for such a thing to happen. Rather than that, it was better to experience the cruelty of the world earlier and adapt to it. At that time, he naturally wouldn't have to worry about these things. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's serious persuasion, Yu Linfeng also understood that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had probably already made up their minds and considered all kinds of problems before coming here. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not consider their considerations. Even if she felt helpless, she could only choose to reject them. Hongzhuang, this matter isn't as simple as you think. In my opinion, you should stay in the upper realm for now. Let's talk about our matters in the future. Yu Linfeng sighed. Chapter 5572. The interior of the carriage suddenly quieted down. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying tactfully remained silent. In truth, they didn't understand why Lan Yunxiao would refuse. This was indeed a very good opportunity. They also wanted to bring the people closest to them to the upper realm when they returned, but after witnessing this scene, their confidence was shaken. Indeed, it wasn't an easy decision to give up so many things. Master, I don't understand why they would refuse. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with doubt. Actually, the Lan family has so many elders. Even if the family head isn't present, it's the same with the elders overseeing the clan. In truth, many family heads didn't stay in the clan. Once their strength reached a certain level, the family heads would go out to experience the world and increase their cultivation. Unless something major happened, they wouldn't stay here forever. Logically speaking, with the Lan family's current situation, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with this. As for the Tiangang sect, it was the same situation. Previously, Bewitching and Situ Yin had been away for a long time, but nothing had happened. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Perhaps I've thought too simply of this matter. Father and the others have other considerations that I didn't think of. Although she didn't know what her father was worried about, she believed that he wouldn't make such a decision without sufficient reason. Bewitching didn't say a word during the entire process, but he kept an eye on Lan Yunxiao and Shangguan Yingying's reactions. He clearly noticed the hesitation and helplessness in Lan Yunxiao's eyes. After carefully pondering it for a moment, a guess suddenly appeared in his mind. No matter how he thought about it, there was no other reason that made more sense than this. Knowing Bailey Hongzhuang's gloominess, Bewitching quietly held her hand. Bailey Hongzhuang turned and heard Bewitching's transmission. Wife, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. But father and the others are very resolute. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to convince them. There was a hint of sadness in Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes, but she wasn't too conflicted. After all, she couldn't consider everything from her own point of view. As long as her parents were happy, she was willing to do anything. Although it was more troublesome to come from the upper realm to the lower realm, as long as one had the heart, it was not a problem. Bewitching smiled slightly. Don't worry. If I say I can solve it, it will definitely be solved. When have I ever disappointed you? Seeing how confident Bewitching was, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be affected by his mood. She immediately raised the corner of her lips into a faint smile. Then I'll wait for your good news. No problem. After a moment of silence, Lan Yunxiao took the initiative to break the deadlock. Hongzhuang, you said earlier that Linfeng had been poisoned for a long time without the antidote, so his foundation was damaged. Has this problem been completely resolved? Following Lan Yunxiao's words, Yu Linfeng couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned this earlier, he was startled. As a cultivator, one's foundation was undoubtedly extremely important. Many people's cultivation stagnated due to their foundation being damaged. This was what he was most worried about. Chapter 5573. Because Master has been poisoned for a long time, his foundation has indeed been damaged. I have already tried my best to solve this problem, but it hasn't been completely cured. Yu Linfeng's pupil shrank. This was what he was most worried about. However, Master, you don't have to be too worried. Because the poison he used is a slow-acting poison, it will take some time to completely cure it. It can't be completely cured in a short period of time. But with heavenly treasures and proper recuperation to stabilize your foundation, it can still be solved. Her warm and gentle voice had a reassuring power. causing Yu Linfeng, who was originally extremely nervous, to quietly relax a little. He didn't know whether Bailey Hongzhuang said these words to reassure him, but he had always believed in Hongzhuang's ability. Since she said these words, it proved that there should be a way to solve it. Bailey Hongzhuang also rejoiced in this point. Because the poison Yin Haoguang used wasn't very strong, it didn't have a big impact. If it was a powerful poison master, then it would be much more troublesome. A genius like master couldn't leave behind an unmentionable illness because of this matter. That would be too much of a pity. Lan family. Inside the room, two women sat opposite each other. Their stunningly beautiful faces were currently filled with worry. One of the women wearing a fiery red dress couldn't help but stand up. Her delicate and adorable face was tightly knitted together, and her voice was filled with worry and impatience. Sister Mu, do you think they're doing well on Penglai Island? Nangong Wu paced back and forth. She was originally an impatient person, and simply couldn't calm down. Now I really feel that I should have gone with them. Even if they encounter danger, it's nothing. It's better than being frightened here. Looking at Nangong Wu's anxious appearance, although Mu Lingbing's expression was calm, she actually had the same thoughts in her heart. Back then, Hong Zhuang and Beichen left first, followed by Yin Xiao and Linfeng. They were so far away, so they simply couldn't obtain the corresponding news. If it was outside, no matter where the two of them went, they wouldn't be worried. However, Penglai Island was a place where geniuses gathered. Even with their strength, it was nothing special there. Once they encountered an expert, the result would be hard to say. Wu, don't be too anxious. It's useless to be anxious. Mu Lingbing sighed. From the day they set out, we knew that they wouldn't be able to return in a short time. Penglai Island is far away, and it takes 2 months to rush to and fro for months. Furthermore, they still have to work hard there to improve their cultivation. When Nangong Wu heard this, she slumped onto the table dejectedly, and a trace of sadness appeared on her pretty face. But I really can't help but worry. I heard that many experts have fallen there. As a cultivator, she had long been used to seeing life and death. She was even more aware that almost every moment, there would be people dying. However, she could not accept such a thing happening to her. Ever since she got together with Yu Linfeng, he was the most important person in her life. If something happened to Yu Linfeng, it would be a heavy blow to her life that she couldn't bear. Mu Lingbing's heart also tightened. In fact, she didn't have many pursuits. After experiencing that incident, what she cared about the most was reuniting with her family. Chapter 55-74. I hope they can all come back safely. Mu Lingbing couldn't help praying. Ever since Hong Zhuang left, she had been praying that the children would be safe. However, from what Di Yujua said, Hong Zhuang and Beichen should be living in the Di family now. With the Di family's strength, they shouldn't have any problems. Why don't we go look for them? Nangong Wu couldn't help but suggest. When Yu Linfeng said he wanted to go first, she had objected. However, in the end, she couldn't win against Yu Linfeng and stayed. As Yu Linfeng left longer and longer, she became more and more worried. She couldn't help but want to go to Penglai Island to look for him. Looking at Nangong Wu's anxious expression, Mu Lingbing grabbed her hand and said, Wu, did you forget what they told us before they left? Especially Linfeng. He especially told me to keep an eye on you, and not let you go to Penglai Island. Think about it, the two of them are stronger than us. If they can't handle it, how can we handle it? If they can handle it, then we don't need to trouble them. So no matter how worried we are, we have to wait. Mu Lingbing's expression was resolute. Although her heart had already flown to Penglai Island, her reason told her that she couldn't be impulsive. If they wanted to go, they would have gone together. She could understand what Yin Xiao and Mu Lingbing were thinking. So no matter how helpless they were, they couldn't be willful. Hearing Mu Lingbing's words, Nangong Wu sighed. It seems like there's really no other way. Don't think about it. I believe they'll come back safely. Mu Lingbing smiled faintly. Have some snacks. No, I'm not in the mood. Nangong Wu shook her head. I'd better go back and cultivate. I hope my cultivation can improve quickly, so that I can go with them. In the past, she didn't pay much attention to cultivation. However, this was what she regretted the most. If he was strong enough, there would be no need for him to wait here. Seeing this, Mu Lingbing nodded slightly. Both she and Mu Lingbing had been working especially hard during this period of time. At least when they were cultivating, they didn't spend all their time worrying and longing for each other. After a few days of flying, Bewitching's group was getting closer and closer to their destination. Sensing the gradually familiar aura, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Unknowingly, he had already left this place for so long. It really felt like a lifetime had passed. Fortunately, everyone was back. Let's go to my house first. Bailey Hongzhuang looked in the direction, which was the closest to the Lan family. Bewitching and the others naturally had no objections. They subconsciously looked at Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. We don't have a problem either. When Xiren smiled faintly. Anyway, there's a teleportation array between the Lan family and Tiangang sect. It's very convenient for us to come and go. As for the Heavenly Dipper sect to the Cloud Sword sect, they had traveled back and forth so many times, and were even more familiar with it. That's good. We'll be arriving at the family soon. Bewitching smiled. Although the upper realm was his home, it had to be said that this was the place where he had lived for the longest time. Even if he felt the air of his hometown, there was a unique sense of familiarity. Chapter 55-75. The flying carriage stopped in front of the Lan family's illusory array, and the 6 of them got off. Bewitching put away the flying carriage. Lan Yunxiao took a few steps forward and opened the illusory array with great familiarity. The Lan family's appearance appeared before everyone's eyes. Come, let's go in quickly. Lan Yunxiao's voice was filled with lightness and joy. His distinguished and elegant appearance, coupled with his brilliant smile, truly made him a first-rate handsome man. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other before following closely behind Lan Yunxiao. Look, is that the patriarch? Suddenly, a sharp-eyed Lan family disciple noticed the approaching figures and couldn't help but cry out in pleasant surprise. Along with this disciple's voice, the other disciples all turned their gazes, and when they clearly saw who it was, joy appeared on everyone's faces. It's not just the patriarch, there's also the young miss and young master. Heavens, this is truly great news. Quickly go inform the madam. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others slowly approached. Seeing the familiar faces before them, everyone completely relaxed. A kind of joy spread from the bottom of their hearts. This kind of feeling was something that couldn't be given by anything else. We're finally back. This feeling is truly great. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Even if this was only the Lan family, and not the Cloud Sword sect that she was familiar with, she already had this kind of feeling. When she returned to the Cloud Sword sect, presumably this kind of feeling would be even more obvious. That's right, this is the feeling of home. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips rose slightly, and the smile that came from the bottom of her heart was extremely brilliant. Nangong Wu was about to return and cultivate properly, when she saw a young disciple energetically running over. As he ran, he shouted, "Madam, the patriarch is back!" Hearing this voice, Nangong Wu was slightly stunned, and then a trace of astonishment appeared in her eyes. She only wondered if she was hallucinating. After hearing this, Mu Lingbing's reaction wasn't much better than Nangong Wu's. She quickly walked out of the room and saw the figure running over. She hastily asked, "What did you say?" "Madam, the family head is back," the young cultivator said happily. Receiving another confirmation, Mu Lingbing couldn't contain her excitement. "You're back. He's finally back." However, Nangong Wu tightly tugged on his clothes and asked, "Only the Lan family head came back?" "No." The man shook his head. "Miss, young master, and Palace Lord, you have all returned." Hearing this, Nangong Wu and Mu Lingbing exchanged glances. Their faces were filled with joy and surprise. Nangong Wu couldn't help but jump up and scream, "They're back! They're all back!" "Yeah, let's go and take a look." Mu Lingbing couldn't care less about her image. She grabbed Nangong Wu and ran out. She had to see for herself that this wasn't an illusion. Patriarch. Young Mississippi, son-in-law. Palace Lord Yu. Along the way, the Lon family disciples all bowed, and everyone's faces were filled with smiles. Young Miss and son-in-law haven't returned since they left. I didn't expect that they would return with the patriarch today. How delightful. Of course, young Miss has always been my idol. I'm so happy to see her again. Chapter 5576. Why haven't I seen Mother and Master's wife yet? Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked forward. Many elders had rushed over after hearing the news. Someone had already gone to inform them, but she didn't understand why they hadn't seen them yet. Whether it was Mu Lingbing or Nangong Wu, Bailey Hongzhuang missed them dearly. They were the most important women in her life. It wasn't just Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng were also looking in the direction of Mu Lingbing's residence. Noticing this, Shangguan Yingying and the rest exchanged looks. They had long heard that both House Master Lan and Palace Master Yu doted on their wives. Now it seemed that the rumors were true. Just as everyone was pondering, two beautiful figures quietly appeared in everyone's line of sight. When Mu Lingbing came out, she immediately noticed the familiar figures in front of her. Her eyes couldn't help but moisten. After waiting for so long, the people she cared about the most had finally returned. Hongzhuang. Mu Lingbing glanced at Lan Yunxiao before rushing to Bailey Hongzhuang. Mother, I'm back. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles as tears flickered in her eyes. Even though they had only reunited for a short time, she was well aware of her mother's love for her. Mother and daughter embraced each other. Feeling the warmth and familiar scent in her embrace, Mu Lingbing's heart was filled with satisfaction and joy. Hongzhuang, you're finally back. After a while, Mu Lingbing released Bailey Hongzhuang and carefully examined her. Has it been hard on you these past few years? I see that you've lost weight. No. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head with a smile. Don't talk about me. You're the one who's really lost weight. She could clearly feel that her mother had lost weight. It must have been because she was worried about them. Who told you not to come back earlier to see me? I've been thinking about you every day, so I lost weight. Mu Lingbing's tears turned into a smile. Your daughter is unfilial, Bailey Hongzhuang said in a low voice with an apologetic look in her eyes. A mother would be worried about a son traveling thousands of miles. In fact, she had always known that her parents and relatives must be worried about her. But there were too many things that she couldn't free herself from in a short period of time. This guilt had always existed in her heart. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression, Mu Lingbing held her hand and shook her head. Silly girl, I was just saying. I know you're filial, and there must be a reason why you didn't come back. At the same time, Nangong Wu looked at Yu Linfeng with tears in her eyes. When she was about 10 meters away, Nangong Wu stopped. Looking at the figure in front of her, who was much thinner than before, her heart was extremely complicated. The nervousness, worry and anxiety of the past few days all rushed to her heart in an instant. All these years, no matter where she went, she was always with Yu Linfeng. They had never been separated for such a long time. Perhaps these days weren't long for others, but for her, it was like 3 autumns in a day. It was too hard to bear. Yu Linfeng looked at the familiar figure, and his handsome face broke into a warm smile. In the next moment, he opened his arms and looked tenderly at Nangong Wu. Nangong Wu smiled when she saw this, but as she smiled, she couldn't stop her tears from falling. She quickly walked forward and ran into Yu Linfeng's arms. Chapter 5577. Yu Linfeng's heart ached as he looked at the petite woman, sobbing uncontrollably in his arms. Guilt and self-blame welled up in his heart. In truth, he was well aware of Nangong Wu's dependence on him. He could guess that when he wasn't around, Nangong Wu would be at a loss for what to do and worry about him all day. However, he had no other choice back then. If it weren't for his good luck and coincidentally meeting Hongzhuang and the others, he would have been dead by now. So even now, he still believed that his decision was the right one. At least this was much better than being separated forever. Wu-er, it's all my fault. Don't cry. Yu Linfeng's voice was extremely gentle as he caressed Nangong Wu's hair. His handsome face was filled with adoration and heartache. Look, Hong Zhuang and the others are back too. Don't make a fool of yourself. However, Nangong Wu, who was in a state of sadness and joy, couldn't stop crying. She buried her head in Yu Linfeng's chest, unwilling to lift her head. Yu Linfeng didn't force her, and only gently patted Nangong Wu's back. Bewitching and the others only smiled faintly at this scene. They didn't think that Nangong Wu was making a fool of herself. On the contrary, this scene made them feel exceptionally warm. Mu Lingbing pulled Bailey Hongzhuang with a face full of smiles. Then she looked at Lan Yunxiao and said in a light voice, "How did you two coincidentally come back together? Isn't that so?" Lan Yunxiao raised his brows. "Father and daughter are connected by heart, so we coincidentally ran into each other." "Really?" Mu Lingbing was surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Isn't that so? Moreover, my father and master are so handsome and elegant. They're very conspicuous." She knew very well that her father didn't want her mother to know what had happened before. He didn't want her mother to worry. She understood her father's deep meaning, and naturally wouldn't say it out loud. Mu Lingbing smiled faintly at the way the father and daughter were singing the same tune. She didn't suspect anything. In fact, no matter if it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Lan Yunxiao, they were both characters that were hard to ignore. "Everyone, don't just stand here. Let's go in and take a seat." After Mu Lingbing recovered from her excitement, she quickly called out to everyone. "We've been on the road for so many days. You must be exhausted. I'll get someone to prepare some food." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "It's been a long time since I've tasted my family's cooking. You've been gone for so long. Now that you're back, you can't leave so soon." "Of course," Bailey Hongzhuang replied with a smile, but a complicated look flashed through her eyes. She also didn't want to be so far away from her mother. She only hoped that she could go to the upper realm with everyone. She just didn't know if her father would change his mind. At this moment, Siren suddenly spoke up. "Bewitching, Ying and I won't stay here any longer." Mu Lingbing hurriedly said, "It wasn't easy for us to come here. No matter what, we have to eat here." "Many thanks, Auntie." Siren smiled faintly. "But we've been gone for a long time. Now that we've finally returned, we want to hurry back and take a look. If we have the chance, we'll definitely come back again." Bewitching nodded. "Then you two can go back first. It'll be quick to go back, after passing through 2 transportation arrays." Mu Lingbing understood Siren and Lan Yunxiao's feelings. "Then Auntie won't keep you here today. Come again next time." Chapter 5578. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching escorted Siren and Wuxia to the teleportation array. "Siren, you guys should return to the Cloud Sword sect first. When the matter is almost settled, we'll meet up at the Tiangang sect," Bewitching said after some thought. The Tiangang sect and the Cloud Sword sect had an excellent relationship. In addition, they practically grew up together, so it was very convenient for the two sects to communicate with each other. Siren nodded slightly. "No problem. I'll send someone to pay attention to whether or not you've arrived at the Tiangang sect. By the way, how long do you plan to stay here this time?" Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but ask. Although they all hoped to stay at home for a while longer, the threat of the upper realm was always there. This time, they had actually spent a lot of time rushing back. Although the Xiao family and the Jun family were damaged, no one knew what would happen in the future. Obviously, they couldn't stay here for too long. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head, a helpless expression on her face. "I haven't thought about it yet. I only hope to bring them to the upper realm. However, you've seen my father's attitude. I don't know how long it will take to convince him. Let's go back and try to talk about this idea. Hopefully my father will agree," Siren sighed. Originally, he was full of confidence about this. However, he wasn't completely sure now. "Let's take it one step at a time. Everyone, go back and understand the situation first. It won't be too late for us to contact each other and think of countermeasures after we figure it out," Bewitching said. "Okay, then let's talk about it this way. In any case, we've just returned. There's no need to be too anxious. After sending off Shangguan Yingying and Xiren, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching continued to walk back to the family. Bai Liyan-che and Ling also came out of the Chaos Ring. Originally, they had planned to come out when they were at Penglai Island. However, many things happened later, so they didn't come out for the time being. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to the house, they found that Nangong Wu's emotions had clearly calmed down. Although her eyes were still red and swollen, she was clearly in a good mood. At this moment, the four were happily chatting in the house. Both Mu Lingbing and Nangong Wu were very interested in Penglai Island's matters. Fortunately, the in-law gave us a lot of spirit stones. Otherwise, we would have been paupers when we arrived at Penglai Island. But after arriving at Penglai Island, they finally understood how precious these stones were. Were truly precious. But after they arrived at Penglai Island, they finally understood how the Hongzhuang Island's island was. Low-grade spirit stones were already exceptionally precious on Penglai Island. However, Diyujua had given them high-grade spirit stones. According to their understanding, almost no one on Penglai Island possessed high-grade spirit stones. I didn't expect spirit stones to be equivalent to gold coins. Without them, it's really hard to move an inch. Mu Lingbing and Nangong Wu listened with great interest. They had never encountered such situations before, and only found it exceptionally interesting. Only when they noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' appearance did the four turn their heads. However, when they saw Bai Liyan-che and Ling they were all stunned. A trace of amazement flashed through their eyes. Such a handsome man and beautiful woman were truly eye-catching. Chapter 5579. What a charming young lady and young man. Nangong Wu's eyes were filled with admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were already first-rate good-looking. She always felt that no one could compare to them. However, the man and woman in front of her were filled with a completely different exotic charm. Not only were they good-looking, but they were also very special. The more she looked at them, the more she felt a certain charm. It didn't matter that the two of them had countless suitors. No matter where they were, they would be noticed at first glance. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng looked at each other. On their way back, they hadn't seen these two youths. Why did Hongzhuang and Yin Jinxing bring these two back with them? Could it be that these two were their friends from before? However, they had just returned. How could they meet so coincidentally? Seeing the four elders' curious expressions, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt a burst of interest. She smiled and said, "Let me introduce you. This is Ling and this is my younger brother, Bai Liyan-che." Hearing Bai Liyan-che's name, Mu Jin's also became interested. Bai Liyan-che? He's also surnamed Bailey? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and smiled. It's just that coincidental. Since you're Hongzhuang's friends, then you're guests. Please sit. Mu Jin's greeted them. Why are you here so coincidentally today? Bewitching and the other two looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's interesting appearance and couldn't help but want to laugh. Lan Yunxiao naturally noticed the change in their expressions. He frowned and his deep eyes were filled with thoughts. He suddenly asked, "Hongzhuang, are you hiding something from us?" Haha. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. You really don't know Ling but Yin-che, you're very familiar with him. Hearing this, the four elders were all stunned. Their gazes all landed on Bailey Yin-che. They clearly didn't remember this figure. Moreover, Bai Liyan-che's appearance was so outstanding. If they had seen him before, it was impossible for them not to have an impression of him. We're very familiar with him. Nangong Wu was puzzled. When had she ever seen such a handsome man? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right, very familiar. She still remembered that when Nangong Wu first saw Bai Shi, she only felt that he was especially handsome. She always liked to pet his head, and would never forget about him when there was good food. Bai Liyan-che also looked at Nangong Wu with a smile. He also remembered the time when he interacted with Nangong Wu. Now that he was back, Nangong Wu couldn't recognize him. How is this possible? Nangong Wu was incredulous. Could it be that I lost my memory? Mu Lingbing's expression was similar to Nangong Wu's. How could she not remember such a man who left such a deep impression on her? Lan Yunxiao looked at Bai Li Yanqei in front of him. After pondering for a while, an impossible thought appeared in his mind. However, he quickly erased it. It was almost impossible. Hong Zhuang, don't keep us in suspense. Just tell us directly. Nangongwu really couldn't think of anything. This curiosity was driving her crazy. Haha. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and turned to look at Bailey Yanqei. Yanqei, it's better if you say it yourself. Chapter 5580. Facing everyone's curious gazes, Bai Li Yanqei smiled faintly and said, I'm Bai Shi. I'm Bai Shi. Following these words, Nangong Wu and the others were clearly stunned for a moment. Immediately after, the four of them widened their eyes. Their shocked expressions were completely different from their usual calm and collected demeanor. Nangong Wu quickly walked forward and carefully sized up Bai Li Yanqei. Previously, because she didn't know Bai Li Yanqei's identity, her attitude was still rather distant. Now that she knew everything, her attitude was completely different. You're really Bai Shi? That's impossible, right? Nangong Wu looked at the perfect side profile in front of her. Aside from being good-looking, there's no similarity between the two of you at all. Could it be that the two of you are colluding to tease us? Bai Shi actually transformed into a human? This was what shocked Mu Lingbing the most. Many people knew that a contracted beast could transform into a human. When a demonic beast's strength reached a certain level, it could transform into a human. But until now, they had never seen such a thing, so they had never thought in this direction. A contracted beast transforming into a human? How shocking was that? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Isn't that so? Bai Shi's cultivation talent is very high. A few days ago, he successfully broke through to human form. Lan Yunxiao sighed inwardly. There was truly an insurmountable gap between the lower realm and the upper realm. This kind of thing was almost impossible in the lower realm. If Hong Zhuang and the others hadn't gone to the upper realm, Bai Shi probably wouldn't have been able to reach this step. That was indeed a more suitable place for cultivators. Previously, this possibility had appeared in his mind, but he didn't say it out loud in the end, because the probability was too low. Bai Li Yanqei saw that everyone was still in shock, and didn't seem to believe his words. He immediately transformed into Bai Shi in front of everyone. Looking at the familiar yet even more majestic white lion in front of them, Nangong Wu and the others finally believed it. It really is a white lion, Nangong Wu exclaimed. Oh my god, this is unbelievable. Previously, I felt that Yanqei looked a little different from the rest of us. He was especially good-looking and gave off a slightly different vibe. Now I finally understand where the problem lies. Mu Lingbing was enlightened. Even if demonic beasts could transform, there were still some differences. Hearing Linger's words, Yu Linfeng couldn't help but look at Linger. Linger had an indescribable quality that was very similar to Bai Shi. Hong Zhuang, could it be that Miss Linger? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Ling is also my contracted beast, but I contracted her when I was training, so you've never seen her before. After receiving this affirmative answer, the four of them sighed. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang had encountered many fortuitous encounters without them knowing. Everyone was already used to the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang could contract multiple demonic beasts. Nangong Wu looked curiously at Ling Er. Ling Er is so beautiful. Could her true form be a fox? Everyone knew that the Fox clan produced the most beauties. Ling Er shook her head. I'm not from the Fox clan. I'm from the Dragon clan. Chapter 5581. It wasn't just Nangong Wu. Mu Lingbing and the others were also shocked when they found out that Ling was from the dragon race. Among the many demonic beast races, the dragon race was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding. There were many stories about the dragon race, but the dragon race had always been mysterious and powerful. Most people's thoughts about the dragon race existed only in guesses and rumors. But now, a real dragon had appeared in front of them. Moreover, it was Hong Zhuang's contracted beast. This was truly shocking. I've also never seen a real dragon before. But it seems that dragons are all beauties, Mu Lingbing said with a smile. Ling was originally a bit uncomfortable under everyone's scrutiny, but when she felt everyone's kind and joyful gazes, her thoughts changed slightly and she calmed down. Hong Zhuang's relatives were undoubtedly very close. Hong Zhuang, you're really amazing now. Yu Linfeng gave her a thumbs up. You've really broadened our horizons. In the past, we've never seen a real beast king until we saw Baisher. Ling is the same. Lan Yunxiao smiled, his voice filled with pride. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly his pride. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, who would have believed it? I'm just lucky. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Although she had worked hard all this time, she had also had a certain amount of luck. If she hadn't been lucky enough to obtain the Chaos Ring, she wouldn't have received the Holy Maiden's inheritance. Perhaps she would have already died in the training grounds. Ling, can you transform into your true form? Nan Gongwu looked at Ling, with some embarrassment. She knew her request was a bit unreasonable, but a real dragon really made her curious. Wu Yu Linfeng's voice was somewhat reprimanding. Although Ling was Hong Zhuang's contracted beast, since she had transformed into a human, she couldn't be treated as a demonic beast. This kind of request was truly inappropriate. Nan Gongwu was undoubtedly very obedient to Yu Linfeng's words. She immediately said, I was just speaking casually. Don't take it to heart. Seeing this, Ling also smiled and said, No problem, this is not a big deal. She was well aware of the human race's curiosity towards the dragon race. In fact, the dragon race had always been a powerful existence. It was just that there weren't many of them. The heavens were fair. If they gave you great strength, they would also give you something else. So the dragon race couldn't compare to other demonic beast races. It was precisely because of this that many people had never seen a real dragon, so it was normal for them to have such curiosity. Even if she had only interacted with them for a short time, she could feel that the people in front of her were very kind. Seeing Ling agree, Bailey Hongzhuang was also a little surprised. According to her understanding of Ling she had always had an indifferent temperament. Basically, she wasn't very willing to do such a thing. In this regard, she had never thought of forcing Ling. If she wasn't willing, then forget it. However, Ling's agreement still made her very surprised. In the next moment, Ling directly walked into the courtyard and transformed into a dragon in the blink of an eye. Chapter 5582. So this is the dragon race. The records in the books weren't this good. Nan Gongwu was shocked as she looked at the lines that resembled art. The white dragon's body glowed with rainbow colors under the sunlight, looking as magnificent and colorful as colored glass. Even though Ling had restrained her aura, she could still feel the dragon's might. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng's reactions weren't as exaggerated as the two girls, but they were still shocked and sighed in their hearts. Although they'd had some guesses about the dragon race from the records and rumors in the books, they only understood the gap between their guesses and reality when they saw it with their own eyes. Isn't that so? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Ling is an especially good-looking existence among the dragon race. Mu Lingbing agreed. No wonder Ling is so beautiful even after transforming into a human. She's an especially good-looking dragon herself. The usually quiet Ling blushed when she heard the crowd's praises. She transformed back into her human form and stood next to Bailey Hongzhuang. Ling's skin is thin. She'll feel embarrassed with so many of you crowding around her and discussing her, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Hearing this, Nan Gongwu withdrew her curious gaze. That's right. Ling is a young lady. It's not good for us to crowd around her like this. Mu Lingbing noticed Ling's awkward expression and immediately understood. You've all rushed here and are probably tired. Why don't you go back inside and rest first? Wait until the banquet to eat something. How about it? Mu Lingbing asked with concern. All right. No one had any objections. Although they'd been on the flying carriage for the past few days, they were still a little tired from the continuous journey. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching didn't mind, but Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng were still injured and needed to rest. After returning to her room, Bailey Hongzhuang felt a surge of warmth in her heart as she looked at her spotless house. It seemed that even though he had been away for so long, his parents still sent people to clean his house, waiting for him to come back. I haven't been back for a long time. Everything feels so warm. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang immersed in happiness, Beichen's heart also felt warm. Since you're back, stay here for a while. Can I? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. There were still many things in the upper realm that they could not let go of. Of course. Beichen nodded. The Xiao family and the Jun family suffered heavy losses this time. They won't be able to recover in a short period of time. Besides, even if they want to cause trouble, the family isn't afraid of them. I still hope that I can convince my parents to leave with us. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly. She missed the feeling of home. Don't worry, we definitely will. Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang to sit on his lap and wrapped his arms around her soft waist. We just came back today, so it's not a good time to talk about this. In 2 days, I'll go and have a good talk with father-in-law. How about it? Bailey Hongzhuang placed her hands on Beichen's and nodded. I believe in you. Chapter 5583. The Lan family banquet was bustling with activity. When the cooks found out that the master, eldest miss, and young master had all returned, they all worked hard to prepare their signature dishes. The entire family was in a joyous mood, and discussions surrounded Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, with the appearance of Bailey Yanche and Ling there was no doubt that 2 more people had joined the discussion. Just as Nangong Wu and the others had guessed, Bailey Yanche and Ling attracted everyone's attention the moment they appeared. Big Sister Mu, you're so lucky to have such a beautiful and outstanding daughter, and such a handsome and powerful son-in-law. Nangong Wu smiled. Even your contracted beast is so good-looking. Ever since they found out about Bai Li Yin Che and Ling identities, they had a new understanding. One is marked by the company one keeps, and one is marked by the company one keeps. A good-looking person's contracted beast is also good-looking. Hearing this, Mu Lingbing chuckled and instinctively glanced at Yu Linfeng. If you're envious, then hurry up and have one. Nangong Wu clearly didn't expect that she would be caught off guard. She quickly changed the topic. I see that many young men and women in your family have taken a liking to Yen Che and Ling. That's to be expected. Mu Lingbing had already guessed this possibility. However, I think that Yen Che and Ling are very compatible. Nangong Wu paused, then looked at Ling and Bai Li Yen Che who were bickering. She suddenly understood. Big Sister Mu, you're so smart. If you hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have thought of this possibility. Haha, it's hard to say what's going on between the younger generation. Mu Lingbing smiled faintly, then turned to Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Today, the kitchen staff has prepared everything that we can think of. Try it and see if you like it. Looking at the various delicacies in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang took 2 bites and praised. The taste is naturally excellent. Lingbing, did you tell father-in-law about Hongzhuang's return? Lan Yunxiao put down his chopsticks and asked. The 2 elders were undoubtedly more eager than them for Hongzhuang and Beichen's return. Don't worry. I've already sent someone to inform him. Mu Lingbing nodded. However, father is currently in closed-door cultivation. He should be here tomorrow. Only then did Lan Yunxiao relax. That's good. The elders of the Lan clan toasted them one by one, celebrating everyone's return. Young miss, will you still be leaving this time? The great elder asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. We're only staying here for a while. We'll still be going out to train in a few days. There was no doubt that it wasn't appropriate to tell everyone about the upper realm. So Bailey Hongzhuang only said that they were going out to train, and didn't talk too much about it. I can sense that young Mrs. Aura is much stronger than before. I wonder what cultivation level you've reached. The second elder was curious. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and Beichen were only sitting there quietly, he could feel an inexplicable pressure. This kind of pressure made him feel extremely terrified. It was as if the eldest young miss only needed a thought to kill him. This was something that he thought was impossible, but this feeling really existed. Chapter 5584. In fact, the second elder wasn't the only one who felt this way. They felt the same way as well. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and said, "We've already cultivated to the purple realm." After hearing this answer, the hearts of all the elders trembled. In fact, everyone had always thought that cultivation was endless. However, they didn't understand what was above the purple realm. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had already cultivated to such a realm at such a young age. It was really amazing. Their eldest young miss was truly a genius. "Young miss, what's the realm above the purple realm? Can you tell us?" The second elder, Lan Borong, blushed and said, "To be honest, I've lived to this age and still don't know what's above the purple realm. I can only find out from young Mississippi." Second elder, "It's not just you. We don't know either." When the Lan family's old master, Lan Hongtai, saw this scene, he felt a burst of pride in his heart. His granddaughter and grandson-in-law were really capable. Facing the curious gazes of the elders, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, "Since all the elders are so curious about this, I'll explain it properly. After the purple realm is the starlight realm, and the nebula realm. Each realm also has 9 levels. I didn't expect there to be 3 more realms after the purple realm. I wonder what realm young miss is in now. I'm in the nebula realm now." When these words came out, everyone was dumbfounded. When the young miss left, she was only in the purple realm. In just a few years, she had already reached the nebula realm? 3 realms in a row. If it was an ordinary person, who knew how many years it would take to cultivate? However, the young miss actually did it so easily. This was too shocking. No wonder I felt that the young miss aura was so terrifying. It turns out that the gap is so big. It wasn't just the elders and disciples. Even Lan Hongtai and the others couldn't help but be shocked when they learned of Bailey Hongzhuang's true cultivation. This kind of cultivation speed was really shocking. So the upper realms are actually so terrifying. Nangongwu lowered her voice and sighed. She had always known that Hongzhuang was a cultivation genius. But she also understood that if Hongzhuang had stayed here all the time, it would have been impossible for her cultivation to reach such a level in just a few years. The upper realm was indeed a cultivation paradise. Yu Linfeng nodded slightly. He was also shocked by this point. After just one trip to Penglai Island, he felt that Penglai Island's cultivation speed was much faster than the outside world. Needless to say, the upper realm was much stronger than Penglai Island. If he had the chance, he really hoped to go to the upper realm. That was a more suitable place for cultivators. "Young miss, you're really amazing. With this kind of cultivation, there's no need to fear anyone." I don't know where the young miss went to train. Such a speed of improvement is really frightening. If I had the chance, then it would really be. Even if you go, you can't compare to the first Mississippi. Although all the disciples understood this point, their blood was still ignited. If they could also have such powerful strength, then they could really do whatever they wanted in the future. For a time, many people were looking forward to the opportunity to train together with the young Mississippi. Chapter 5585. That night, many of the Lan family's cultivators couldn't sleep. Bailey Hongzhuang had described a brand new world to them, making them understand that this world wasn't as simple as they thought. There was an even vaster world with even higher realms. And now, the eldest miss they had always admired was walking at the forefront. News of Lan Yunxiao and Bailey Hongzhuang's return immediately spread throughout the Shengxian continent. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had always been the focus of attention, so when they mysteriously disappeared, many people were very surprised. Regarding this, Tiangang sect only said that they had gone out to gain experience. However, no one doubted it. As long as one was a cultivator, they would always go out to gain experience, not to mention a sect master who needed to raise his cultivation. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had returned, everyone was even more curious. They didn't know what cultivation they had reached after going out to gain experience for so long. After all, Tiangang sect, Lan family, limitless palace, and other powers added together was an unshakable colossus. Everyone couldn't help but be concerned. Early the next morning, Si Tuyen and Mu Jins arrived at the Lan family. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest immediately rushed over after hearing the news. Di Beichen was even more excited. Si Tuyen had raised him and was undoubtedly the closest person to him. I heard that Hongzhuang and Beichen are back, so I immediately rushed over. Is this true? Si Tuyen no longer had his usual calmness. His face was filled with surprise and excitement. This old fellow rushed over after hearing the news, not caring how early it is. Mu Jin smiled. Hongzhuang is really back? Mu Lingbing looked at their anxious expressions and smiled. Don't worry, they're really back. I've already sent people to inform Hongzhuang and Beichen. They should be back soon. You guys can sit for a while. Beichen's constitution has been completely resolved, right? Si Tuyen asked with concern. Lan Yunxiao nodded. It's already been completely resolved. Who knows how good he looks now? His cultivation has also greatly improved. You'll definitely be shocked when you see it. That's good, that's good. Si Tuyen heaved a sigh of relief. Although he had heard of this news before, he still couldn't completely feel at ease without seeing him in person. Since even Lan Yunxiao and Lan Xuanyu said so, it proved that there really was no problem. While they were talking, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang rushed over. Master! Di Beichen had a pleasantly surprised smile on his face. Looking at that familiar face, he felt an indescribable sense of intimacy. Scenes of his master raising him as an adult seemed to appear before his eyes. From when he was just a toddler learning how to walk to when he started his own family, bringing him everywhere to experience and improve his cultivation, teaching him how to use the sword at the back of the mountain, bringing him to drink, all of those scenes made him feel incomparably nostalgic. Beichen, Si Tuyen's face was also filled with ecstasy. He felt as if his grandson who had been away for a long time had finally returned home. When everyone saw this scene, they all sighed in their hearts. They knew very well that even if Di Beichen and Si Tuyen weren't related by blood, the relationship between the two of them wasn't any less than that of a real grandfather and grandson. Chapter 5586. Hongzhuang, you're finally back. Quick, let grandmother take a look. Have you lost any weight while you were away? Mu Jinsei carefully sized up Bailey Hongzhuang, before a satisfied smile appeared on her face. Good, you're still so pretty. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled when she heard that. Grandmother, you're also a great beauty. Haha, you're such a sweet talker. Mu Jinsei patted Bailey Hongzhuang's little hand. You can't leave so soon after coming back this time. Spend more time with grandmother and your mother. You don't know, but while you were away, your mother had been waiting for you to come back every day. Mu Lingbing saw that Mu Jinsei had sold her out the moment she opened her mouth and couldn't help but say, Hongzhuang, your grandmother is also waiting for you to come back every day. She's always talking about you, but she doesn't talk about it anymore. Mu Jinsei's expression changed as she said, Lingbing you. Hearing all this, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt her heart grow warmer. Grandmother, mother, I know you're all thinking about me. Her exquisite face was filled with a blissful smile. I've always been thinking about you too. I hate that I can't be with you all every day. It would be great if that could be the case. Mu Jinsei couldn't help but sigh. After Di Yujua had appeared, her feelings had undoubtedly been extremely complicated. If they hadn't found the Di family, then Beichen would have been able to come back after his body's condition was resolved. But now that Beichen had found his family, he naturally couldn't stay here forever. She was happy that Beichen had found his family, but when she thought about how her child wouldn't be able to stay by their side often, she felt a little sad. After everything that had happened, what she yearned for the most was to be reunited with her family. Actually, this isn't impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. After a short discussion, Si Tuyen suddenly said, Beichen, did Xiren and Yingying come back with you? We're back. We're back together. Di Beichen smiled lightly. But we just returned yesterday. So Xiren and Yingying returned to the Cloud Word sect first. Situ Yen nodded slightly with a heavy expression on his face. It's good that you're back. You made it in time. Seeing the change in Situ Yan's expression, Bewitching couldn't help but ask, Master, did something happen? Why do you have such an expression? When Bailey Hongzhuang heard the conversation between the two, she couldn't help but look over with a concerned expression. Xiren and Ying were their good friends, so they naturally cared about them. Something has indeed happened to the Cloud Sword sect recently. Situ Yen sighed, and his expression was filled with helplessness. Lan Yunxiao couldn't help but ask, what exactly happened? Sect Master one of the Cloud Sword sect went out to gain experience a few days ago to search for an opportunity to break through. Yet he never imagined that he would offend an expert and be heavily injured. He fled with heavy injuries and returned to the Cloud Sword sect extremely carefully. Yet he never imagined that the rage of that expert hadn't dissipated at all. Moreover, that expert intentionally let him return for the sake of finding out where he came from. Now that expert has even spread the news that the entire Cloud Sword sect will be annihilated 7 days from now. So the current situation of the Cloud Sword sect can be said to be extremely terrible. Who's so arrogant? Bewitching's eyes sank, and his voice unconsciously carried a trace of viciousness. Even if there was enmity between two cultivators, it wouldn't affect their family. Chapter 5587. I don't know either. Sect Master Wen contacted me after this incident, but according to his description, I'm unable to determine who it is. Situ Yen had a difficult expression on his face. He had been the sect master here for so many years, so he knew the experts of the Shengxian continent very well. However, according to Sect Master Wen's description, he could not think of such a person in his mind. Sect Master Wen's strength is considered outstanding even among the various sect masters. To be able to injure him to such an extent, and even dare to speak so arrogantly, it must be a peerless expert, right? Mu Lingbing's eyes rippled with contemplation. She had never heard of this before. On one hand, it had only happened recently, and on the other hand, she didn't know who this expert was. Situ Yen nodded slightly. According to Sect Master Wen, this person's strength is extremely strong, almost exceeding his understanding. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. If they hadn't been to Penglai Island in the upper realm, they wouldn't have been able to understand this at all. However, after experiencing so many things, they understood that this person's strength had most likely surpassed the Purple Realm and was at least at the Starlight Realm. Otherwise, Sect Master Wen wouldn't have such a feeling. Grandfather, is Sect Master Wen's injury very serious? Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was filled with concern. Although she hadn't seen Sect Master Wen before, he was Xiren's father. Needless to say, Wen and Xiren would be heartbroken when they returned and saw this scene. It's very serious. Many doctors and alchemists in the sect have gone to see him, but the results weren't very good. Situ Yen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, since you're back, why don't you go take a look? Among the doctors he knew, Bailey Hongzhuang was the best. Many doctors and alchemists were helpless. Perhaps he could get a trace of hope from Bailey Hongzhuang. Then let's set off now. Bailey Hongzhuang hurriedly said. For this kind of matter, the earlier the better. If they were late and something bad happened, it was something none of them wanted to see. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone nodded. Among the various sects, the Cloud Sword sect had always had a close relationship with them. In addition to the brotherhood between Xiren and Bewitching, this matter naturally couldn't be left unattended. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching set off, Lan Yunxiao and Yulinfeng also decided to follow them. Yulinfeng. Everyone was a little worried about the sudden appearance of this peerless expert. Master, if that guy is really in existence above the Starlight Realm, then he's an existence that surpasses everyone in the Shengxian continent. Even the playful Xiao Hei felt the seriousness of the matter after hearing this news. Her brows were tightly knitted, and her face was filled with worry. That's right. Compared to other things, perhaps this is the most important problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes darkened. She didn't know what level the other party's strength had reached, nor did she know if they could deal with him. Chapter 5588. Logically speaking, it's very difficult for a Starlight Realm cultivator to appear in the cultivation resources of the lower realms, but it's not completely impossible. Bewitching was also immersed in his thoughts. This situation really caught them off guard. Previously, they were worried that something like this would happen, so they hoped to bring their clans and sects to the upper realms. Although there were powerhouses everywhere in the upper realms, under such circumstances, everyone could also improve faster. Sometimes, being in such a situation wasn't a bad thing. On the contrary, ignorance was the most terrifying. However, he didn't expect that just as he started to worry about this problem really happened. This was undoubtedly terrible. Didn't that guy say that he'll come to destroy the Cloud Sword sect in 7 days? We'll know when we see it with our own eyes. The cold voice was cold and sharp, and the phoenix eyes that were as black as ink rippled with a deep and cold light. Even if they didn't know what kind of guy the other party was, since he had provoked them, they definitely couldn't let him go. Cloud Sword sect. Xiren and Shengguan Yingying were undoubtedly in an extremely bad mood at this moment. They originally thought that after returning this time, they would see a happy and harmonious scene. Xiren thought that this time, he would be able to hold his head high in front of his old man. Previously, his old man had always said that his vision wasn't broad enough, and wanted him to go out and gain experience. After going out this time, his strength had increased a lot compared to before. However, he didn't expect to see his heavily injured father after returning. When Jinghui was lying on the bed at this moment, the injuries on his body were shocking, and one of his hands was gone. He had often seen his father injured since he was young, but it was really the first time he saw such serious injuries. Xiren, why don't we go look for Hong Zhuang? Hong Zhuang's medical skills are so good, she must have a way. Shengguan Yingying anxiously paced back and forth. She really didn't expect such a scene to happen. For a moment, she was so anxious that she didn't know what to do. Father said that he has already told Sect Master Situ about this matter. As long as Hong Zhuang and the others see Sect Master Situ, he will definitely mention this matter. Once Hong Zhuang and the others know about it, they will definitely come over. We don't need to make an extra trip. Xiren pulled Shengguan Yingying back. Presently, what we have to worry about the most is stabilizing the hearts of the people. After this incident occurred, all the disciples of the Cloudsword sect were in a state of panic, and there were even many people that wanted to flee first. The Cloudsword sect is Father's painstaking effort. I can't let it disperse just like this. No matter what, the Cloudsword sect was his roots, and it was the place he'd lived since he was young. His mother had left early, so his childhood memories were of his father and the Cloud Sword sect. Even if his father normally wasn't good at expressing his feelings, he understood his father's feelings towards the Cloudsword sect. If the Cloudsword sect were to collapse just like this, then that would be something that his father was most unable to accept. Shengguan Yingying nodded when she heard this. You're right. All the disciples are discussing this matter. What do you think we should do? Stabilizing the hearts of the people. This matter was simple, but the hearts of the people were the most difficult to predict. If they wanted to stabilize the hearts of the people, then they had to make everyone be filled with confidence towards the Cloudsword sect. Yingying, don't worry about it. Leave this matter to me. Chapter 5589. Just as the two of them were talking, Bewitching and his group had arrived. Xiren. Bewitching quickened his steps and walked in front of Xiren. You're here. Xiren's lips curled into a smile. I knew you'd come today. How's Uncle? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with concern. Shengguan Yingying walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, her delicate face filled with anxiety. Hongzhuang, it's good that you're here. Father's condition is very serious. Quickly go and take a look. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded solemnly. Quickly take me to have a look. Yingying, take Hongzhuang over first. We'll be there soon, Xiren said. Immediately after, Bailey Hongzhuang followed Bailey Hongzhuang and quickly rushed to Sect Master Wen's residence. On the way, Shengguan Yingying was also anxiously explaining the general situation to Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, we can only rely on you now. Shangguan Yingying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with hope. The latter was undoubtedly carrying all their hopes. This time, the serious injury caused a huge blow to father. I feel that his entire condition has become very bad. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She still had some doubts in her heart. However, when she saw Sect Master Wen, she suddenly understood what Shangguan Yingying meant. In her line of sight, Sect Master Wen was lying on the bed. His originally handsome face looked extremely old at this moment. Even his hair had turned white. He was dispirited and listless, as if his vitality had been forcefully taken away by something. His eyes were dim and lifeless. "Father, Hongzhuang is here," Shangguan Yingying called out softly. Her slightly trembling voice was filled with heartache. She'd stayed in the Cloudsword sect since she was young, and she'd taken Wen Jinghui to be her own father since long ago. At this moment, when she saw him in such a state, how could her heart not ache? Wen Jinghui then turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang, the corners of his lips pulling out a smile with difficulty. "Hongzhuang, you're here." "Uncle, let me take a look at your injuries," Bailey Hongzhuang said softly. Wen Jinghui waved his hand. "It's useless. I know my body. It can't be saved." Originally, when he fled back, he was quite glad that the heavens didn't want him to die. However, after returning, he found that his body's condition was getting worse and worse. So many doctors and alchemists came, but it was useless. Presently, he'd already given up hope, and the only thing he regretted was that if he knew the outcome would be like this, then he shouldn't have returned at that time, and he wouldn't have implicated the entire Cloudsword sect. The only thing that comforted him was that he was still able to see Xiren and Yingying before he returned, and this was already the preferential treatment that the heavens had given him. "Uncle, your condition isn't that bad. Don't give up so quickly," Bailey Hongzhuang said hurriedly. Shangguan Yingying spoke out as well. "Father, the other doctors and alchemists can't treat you because their standards aren't high enough. However, you know how strong Hongzhuang is, so you can be at ease and let her treat you." Wen Jinghui looked at Shangguan Yingying and smiled lightly. "I know you're filial." With Wen Jinghui's cooperation, Bailey Hongzhuang carefully examined Wen Jinghui's injuries, and she instantly gained a trace of understanding in her heart. "Hongzhuang, is father's injuries related to the energy of darkness?" Chapter 5590. "That's right," Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "It seems that this guy might have come from the upper realm. Awakening one's innate talent could only be done in the upper realm. She had previously thought that this guy might have come from Penglai Island, but now she was certain. Although she couldn't figure out how this guy came from the upper realm to the lower realm. Such a guy would indeed pose a great threat to the Shengxian continent. Then can father's injuries be treated? Don't worry, if it was before, it would be a little troublesome to treat, but I'm the Saint of Light now, so this shouldn't be a problem for me." With the voice of Bailey Hongzhuang falling, Shangguan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief, and her whole body was at ease. As long as her father was fine, they could think of other ways. Wen Jinghui had already given up hope, but after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's confident words, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, a thick look of surprise appearing in his eyes. "Did he hear wrongly?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. "Uncle, you don't have to worry, I'll be able to heal you soon. But you'll have to think of another way to heal your hand." Wen Jinghui's hand was already gone, so if he wanted to regrow it, he would have to find another way. Wen Jinghui nodded. He had already given up on this point. However, the news that he was still alive was undoubtedly extremely shocking to him. Next, Bailey Hongzhuang began to use the power of light to heal him. In fact, Wen Jinghui's injuries weren't complicated. The reason why the doctors were helpless was because they couldn't stop the destructive power of darkness. Not only that, that guy was very despicable. He even left a trace of darkness in Wen Jinghui's body when he attacked. It was this dark power that was constantly destroying Wen Jinghui's vitality. If they had come back 2 days later, Wen Jinghui would have been exhausted to death by this dark power. As an extremely warm light appeared from Bailey Hongzhuang's body, Wen Jinghui only felt an indescribable sense of comfort. The feeling of collapse from before seemed to have disappeared in an instant, and even his breathing became smoother. The power of light and the power of darkness were opposites to begin with, so under the influence of the power of light, the power of darkness quickly dissipating into nothingness in the blink of an eye. When Jinghui looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment, he had never seen such a method before. When that ray of light appeared, he only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had become sacred and inviolable. She was as holy as a fairy from the ninth heaven, giving people an indescribable feeling of nobility. Most importantly, that kind of power made people feel comfortable for no reason. This feeling was transmitted from every corner of his body. It was no different from a cleansing of his marrow and meridians. "Uncle, do you feel better?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile. Even though his injuries had yet to be healed, when Jinghui's mental state was already much better than before after eliminating the dark energy that was constantly destroying his body. When Jinghui nodded, "Much better, Hongzhuang. I didn't expect you to be so powerful now. Yingying and Xiren are also very powerful, so you don't have to worry." "Don't worry, Xiren can handle the 7-day agreement." Chapter 5591. When Xiren and the others arrived, they saw that Jinghui had recovered a lot. Immediately, Xiren breathed a sigh of relief, and a long-lost smile appeared on his face. Even though he wasn't proficient in medicine, he could tell from Shangguan Yingying and the others' expressions that there shouldn't be any problems. "Hongzhuang, many thanks." Xiren suppressed the excitement in his heart. Even though he had always appeared to be strong, he still couldn't calm down after seeing his father's condition. Now that he saw this scene, he was completely at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "With our relationship, do you still need to say such words? Alright, take it that I said something wrong. Hongzhuang, how is Sect Master Wen's condition?" Situyen asked. He and Jinghui had been friends for many years and had a very close relationship. Although Jinghui was Xiren's father, the age gap between them wasn't very big because he married and had children at a later age. "Don't worry, it's nothing serious. He just needs to recuperate for a while." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "That's good." Situyen revealed a smile and looked at Jinghui. "I told you not to despair. You can be at ease now." Jinghui chuckled. "It seems that my luck this time is really good." After Bailey Hongzhuang bandaged Jinghui's wounds, everyone began to discuss the situation. "Sect Master Wen, please tell us the ins and outs of what happened. This way we can think of a countermeasure," said Lan Yunxiao. "All right." Following that, Jinghui recounted everything that had happened back then. It turned out that Jinghui had gone out to train this time to find an opportunity to break through. During this process, he found a place with extremely dense origin energy. It was a good place for cultivation. No cultivator would be willing to miss such a good cultivation cave, so he went in to take a look. However, he didn't expect that the cave had already been occupied. After discovering this, he immediately wanted to leave. He didn't expect that the other party would be so furious at his appearance that he didn't even have the slightest chance, and directly wanted to take his life. He didn't care too much at first, but after the other party made a move, he felt the other party's terrifying strength. He didn't have the slightest room to resist. However, after heavily injuring him, the other party didn't directly take his life, but let him leave. He originally thought that the other party didn't intend to take his life, but he didn't expect that the other party had actually been following him for the sake of destroying the entire Cloud Sword sect. The other party's strength was very strong. I didn't notice that he was following me until he appeared in the Cloud Sword sect. Jinghui's S's S. After Savov's S's S. The other party should be a cultivator of the darkness attribute, but I don't know how he came here from the upper realm. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Sect Master Wentz was unable to heal because of the dark energy. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.